All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, April 8th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and I'm supposed to be joined by AJ Schullo. I guess AJ's just running late right now, but I want to get the show started. So either way, hopefully he jumps in soon, but we were going to talk about Bellator today. That was the plan. Just starting it off now, wait for people to jump in. But we do have Bellator 256 and obviously one on TNT 1, which was a very interesting card with some very interesting results, you could say. Some fights that I think some people, aren't so sure that's the way those fights should have went, especially if they were in a different promotion, different rules. But we'll talk about that. I'm just waiting for AJ, guys. Hold on a sec. Hopefully he jumps in. Nope. Hopefully he jumps in soon, guys. I don't know where he is. Maybe he's taking going to the bathroom or something. It's all good. Let's see if someone else can join in. Anyways, all right. Bellator 256 and one on one TNT 1. Might as well start talking about the one card while AJ's hopefully getting here. All right, so I was excited to watch it, but man, it turned out to be kind of a weird event, and I feel like this event kind of turned some people off of one a little bit too. Like, this was not the greatest, I don't think, first showing for like fans that have never seen one championship before. Like, if you had just seen one for the first time and you just seen that Eddie Alvarez fight and how he was given a disqualification, like a red card and stuff that we don't see in the North American MMA. You might be turned off, especially, the other fight with Demetrious Johnson and seeing the knee, and a knee that, funny enough, the bantamweight champion UFC cost him the title, Peter Yan, but in another rule set, you can throw that knee. So I think a lot of people were confused. There were some other issues, like there were some technical issues. There was one point where they're trying to talk to the fighter. I think it was Eddie Alvarez, I believe, and the microphones weren't working, the headphones weren't working, which was kind of weird. Yeah, it was just, I don't know. Like, I don't think this was exactly like a home run for the promotion like they wanted. There's AJ. There you are.
What's up, dude? I'm so sorry, man. That is on me 100%. I apologize.
All right, man. He's here, guys. No worries. I just set it up basically. AJ, like, I just think this was like not the greatest showing for one. Like, if this is your first time watching one championship, which I'm not sure, because you told me you weren't super familiar with it. I don't watch like all of them, but like, what was your initial thoughts on this card? Because I saw a lot of fans, casual fans, are like, this is weird, man. Like, what do you think, AJ?
Well, I think it might have been weird to somebody just starting out watching one, but say knew Eddie and Demetrious Johnson as like these compelling UFC figures, and like, why are these guys losing in this other organization? But like you pointed out on Twitter, one is a super underrated promotion, right? We've got some of the really talented fighters over there. So I would describe the event as crazy, hectic, right? Because Demetrious Johnson lost as like an 8-1 favorite or something like that. Eddie had there was a little bit of controversy there, which I'm not sure if you got into, but it was a crazy event, man. Mainly with those two fights.
Let's talk about it. I mean, we'll talk about. Might as well go through you watched the whole card, AJ, or you watched the main card? Like, what did you watch?
I just got the highlights of those last two fights. Okay,
no worries. Let's talk about Demetrious Johnson losing. So the knee landed, but he got knocked down with an uppercut before that. Like, this guy, I even said on Twitter, I was like, don't lay minus 1,000. Like, me and Marcel were like begging people not to do it, AJ. We're like, don't do it, guys. Like, this is what I'm saying, AJ. Like, this is the danger with laying juice like that. Like, you told me you draw the line at 5-1. That's what you said on the last podcast. 10-1, AJ. Like, it seems like easy money, right? Demetrious Johnson gets this guy we've never heard of, Adriano Moraes. But like I said, AJ, on Twitter, there are great fighters in MMA all around the world that we just don't know about yet. I'll give you an example. When Bellator announced this tournament, Corey Anderson, he's fighting this guy, I can't pronounce his name. I go, who is this guy? I'm like, he must be some can. Just assuming they wanted Corey Anderson to be pushed through the tournament. Then Marcel's like, dude, this is the ACA champion. This guy's a beast. So there's these really good fighters that can upset like top 5 talent in the world. Don't get me wrong, Demetrious is still a great fighter. I still believe that, AJ, he's still going to be always remembered as one of the all-time greats, but he is getting up there in age. He is slowing down a bit. And he ran into a guy who's super, super underrated, Adriano Moraes, who is massive for this weight class and who trains at a great camp in American Top Team. I was blown away by this guy's performance. What did you think?
Dude, that was awesome. And yeah, it's just another example of, like we said in the past, just don't use the word lock in MMA, right? Like, if somebody was asking me before the event, like, do you think Demetrious Johnson wins? Oh, yeah, I think he wins. But like, 8-1, like you said. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I saw the first line open at -4-1, I thought about it, but then I looked into more of Adriano, and I'm like, dude, this guy's an amazing fighter. I'm not going to lay that number on Demetrious. Like you said, the size disadvantage as well. Size is a compelling angle.
Size matters. It does matter.
It does. And no matter how technical Demetrious is, no matter how few holes we know he has in his game, eventually there's a threshold there, right, where the size kind of is overwhelming. And as we'll get into maybe with Blanchfield versus Dumont this week, there is definitely a fine line with that, where maybe the size is more compelling than the technique, and it kind of overrides it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I'm with you 100% on that. The other fight, obviously, Iuri Lapicus winning via DQ against Eddie Alvarez. Now, this is sketch, bro, to me. Like, the way this line moved, AJ, at the last second, and how we're not sure if this was even a live event or it was tape delayed somewhat. Like, there's a lot. I don't know, man. This is really weird. There's some stuff going on. Like, I heard there's a fighter. I can't see who it is, but I heard there's a fighter scheduled for an upcoming card who has COVID, who's not going to be in the card, but they have not announced it yet. And I think they've already taped the event, and like someone else fought. That is so weird, man. So when I saw this, AJ, because I was like, Eddie Alvarez is going to roll. I watched the tape. He's pretty good, but come on. I mean, Alvarez would have won this fight via first round TKO with the majority of referees MMA. This guy says back of the head. There was one punch that did land in the back of the head, no doubt about it. It was, but AJ, that punch lands in almost every single MMA fight, and they don't DQ guy, give him a red card, take away part of his purse, which is disgusting to me. They took away his money, and then they DQ'd the guy. I feel like he got completely jobbed. I feel like that was a really bad beat. I think if you played Eddie Alvarez at like a pick'em price, like they closed that, AJ, he was like -120. I think that was a great number on this guy, and I think you got jobbed here. What do you think?
Yeah, it was so weird, right? Because like, I mean, there was like no warning. It was just like there was a couple like questionable shots, or maybe even just one, and it was like, no, that's the fight, that's it. Like there was no warning, there was no just like it was just like that's it. It is weird circumstance. I mean, it's not like I always kind of give these sort of other promotions the benefit of the doubt in cases like these, because the reality is just like not all these promotions are nearly as developed as the UFC. UFC is a fine product that's been established for years. I'm not trying to make an excuse for one, but I kind of understand the quote unquote mistake that was made. Hopefully that, you know, this sort of thing doesn't happen again. Hopefully this Alvarez situation serves as a benchmark to say, you know, maybe we shouldn't address this way. And perhaps it gets overturned if Eddie chooses to appeal it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what that, I mean, he says he wants to do it, so I'm curious to see if they actually would even do that. But like, I don't know, like, it's just weird how they just called it a DQ right away. Like, the guy got finished, though. The thing is, he's hurt, right? Like, he is hurt. I believe he is. Alvarez was, like, in tears afterwards. Like, he was, like, I don't know if you saw his quotes today. He was saying, like, we all have a family to go home to, and, like, this guy is seriously injured. And, like, it made me sad, too, man, because, like, you know, we're all sitting there complaining about our bets losing and stuff like that. And these guys are, like, getting punished in the octagon, man. Like, what they're doing. You know what I mean, AJ? Like, it puts it in perspective a little bit, like, what these guys and girls go through. But I think that's a bad beat, personally, you know? Mm-hmm. I'm all, like, I think that's, like, these kind of calls, like, these DQ calls are kind of worse to me than, like, judging decisions. Like, they're like, super, super subjective by the referee. And I think the majority of refs, man, would have just called it a TKO even before that final shot landed. So I think he got a raw deal. I will say this, though. I do think he is on a bit of a decline, you know, but I think he looked okay in this fight. I'm curious to see if they do, like, overturn it. Maybe he just gets a title shot next. So you think they would do that? Or, like, because there's not a lot of contenders in this promotion, let's be honest, like, for the belt. Do you think they would maybe just turn him around quickly? And because the other guy's hurt, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. That would be a good compromise, right, considering the circumstances. Yeah. And I do agree with, like, the decline. And that's ultimately why I passed on Eddie is, like, yeah, we know him as this great fighter, but, like, he's 37 now. He's taken a lot of punishment. Yeah, he was a better fighter on paper here. I think he proved that. But that's always a hesitation for me as a bettor, because it's like if one fighter stock is rising, the other one's declining. It's like, well, something's got to give here. And ultimately, I stay away from spots like these. For sure. And, like, that's a bet I wanted to give out, but we're sticking to UFC over at Elite. And I was like, you know what? Don't even get involved in the smaller market, because not everyone has that book available too, like to bet on, AJ. Like, maybe half the books had it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I heard different things about how they paid out. Like, I asked that question in Twitter because someone told me last night they got graded as a no contest. I was like, why would, like, if you got jobbed, then, like, if you did bet the DQ or the other guy, Lapicus, you should have won your bet. He said he got graded as a no contest. Then I had a few people saying today they got graded as winners. So it's one of those ones, you know, like, as a book, you could kind of go either way there too. There's a way you could, like, if you did
have Eddie bettors, like maybe you could give them their money back, like a bad beat kind of thing, AJ, like to buy some goodwill. Because that was, bro, I don't know. There's just some stuff I don't trust about this promotion, man. I gotta be honest. Like the way that line dropped, like it jumped. Like have you seen did you wait? Let me show you this, AJ. Like you just gotta see like the way the line moved. Like right at the last second, like and then this guy gets DQ'd on. Like it's just bizarre. Like the steam came in so quick, and that's the kind of stuff that always makes you wonder. For me, this one. Look at that. Like all week, it's floating around that tweet, and then look at this, AJ, and it just nosedived right at the last second.
Wow. That's
kind of sketchy to me, guys. Like, I got to be honest, the way the fight played out, like, did someone know the result of this fight? Was it filmed an hour before? I don't believe it was truly live. Like, I don't know, man. My spidey senses are tingling. But I got to be honest, it kind of turns me away from betting on one a little bit, too, like when I see that kind of thing. And I don't know. I mean, I think in general, we don't have as much information about this promotion, to make a really, truly educated bet, AJ, like we do with a UFC fight or a Bellator fight even. I'm not sure what you think about that. Like how often you even bet on one?
I've never bet on it.
There you go. So there you go. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
It's for that very reason. It's hard to gauge the level of competition. Like we're so much better at that in the UFC because they're just so much more experienced. They're seasoned fighters. We're used to them competing against one another. So it draws for a solid benchmark to know exactly how good they are. Whereas in one, it's like, yeah, they got some really good fighters, but how are they in relation to one another? So it makes it a little bit more difficult, kind of like Contender Series.
Yeah, no, that's a good comparison. It's stupid, though, because their next couple events, like I said, are tape delayed. So they might have been filmed already. I don't know when they filmed these. I also think it's really sketchy, guys, how they don't have the official weigh-ins. They don't show the public the weigh-ins. I think that's really sketchy, because that guy looked massive. They both weighed in at 135 pounds, apparently. I don't know. A lot of people have questions about that, AJ. I'm not saying that they didn't, hit that mark, but it'd be nice to see the weight. Like, there's no official weigh-in. There's nothing. They just and yes, they are 10 pounds up, or in this case, 15 pounds up at 170, for a lightweight fight, which I like, by the way. Like, I don't mind like a same day weigh-in like they're doing. They just have to be like on weight, and during the week they weigh them to make sure they're within a certain percentage of that division. They do hydration tests on these guys. That's what they claim, anyways, right? But we don't see any of that, man. And I like transparency, bro. I really like transparency, and in the United States and Canada, for instance, when the UFC goes to any international event, you do have that transparency for the most part, But there's sketchy things that happen all the time in these commissions, bro. I'm telling you, like I was in Montreal when GSP fought Nick Diaz. GSP didn't make weight that day. Like everyone knows he came over like 0.1 or 0.2 in the scale. Everyone knows that, but they allowed it to pass. You know what I mean? So. The Daniel Cormier thing too. I mean, the towel, right? Like they still allowed it. Remember that? Like, yeah. So it's all commission based. I just feel like this commission. I think they run their own. They're running their own events, aren't they? Like, wouldn't you like to see more transparency with like a weigh-in, AJ, an official weigh-in?
Yeah, I would for sure. Transparency is key. That's what the people love. I mean, people like that when they're subscribing to betting services. They want to know where exactly you're coming from. Just like we want to know everything else that's out there that we could get our hands on, right? So the more transparent, the better.
No, I agree. Did you watch any of the other fights on the card?
I did not. No.
Okay, so there's just a few other fights. One fight, Raymond Magomed Aliyev against Tyler McGuire. I thought McGuire was a dog, had a chance here. He is a grinder. He made the full 3 rounds, but the other guy, the Russian, just did way more damage. One of those fights where damage just completely outweighs the takedown. You know what I mean? Like the other guy had full mount, I think, at one point, but it didn't matter because he did nothing with it when the other guy was, punishing him from in the clinch and stuff. So I think it was a good decision. By the way, they don't score fights per round. They do it as a whole. What are your thoughts on that?
That's interesting. Yeah. I guess
like pride rules a little bit,
Yeah, that would definitely change some results of some fighs we had, right? So,
yes, for sure.
Just like anything else that's newly implemented, I'm sure there'd be a lot of uproar. But if the UFC or Bellator were to try it out, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Just see how it is. Maybe it's better. Maybe it's not. But we won't know until they see it. So I think it's a pretty interesting angle.
Yeah. Just a couple other fights in the card. Umar Kane, Rug, that big, humongous guy from Senegal. Did you see his? I don't know if you saw his fight. It lasted like maybe 50. How long did it last? Minute and 48 seconds. He fought a kickboxer who took the fight on 24 hours notice. No MMA experience. The guy, it was his first MMA fight. Literally got taken down like right away and then just pounded. I mean, there was because the fight was booked on short notice. I don't think there was a betting line for it. And then there was 2 Muay Thai fights. The Muay Thai fights were crazy though. Like I don't know if you saw that main event, like that Rod Tang versus Daniel Williams. Man, that fight was like brutal, AJ. Like these Muay Thai guys are crazy. Man, like it's just they're just destroying each other's bodies. It's insane. Kick to the body, punch to the head. Like that fight was good. Then the other fight, Enrico Keel versus Chanigs Alazov. Anyways, that was a good fight, split decision. They were good fights. I mean, listen, like I'm on. There's by the way, there's a Muay Thai to bet on right now. I don't know if you saw Best Fight Odds. They have Lions fight. Mm-mm. I'm not. You know, for me, it's like I have bet on this stuff before, but like I'm sticking to MMA now. I'm sticking to the UFC now, AJ, and Bellator. You know what I mean? The stuff we know, right?
Right.
These other small markets, like you take a risk, right? You do take a risk, AJ, because you don't have that information that we have. So, you know, the other day I was saying, like, for instance, McGuire, and I was like talking about his dog. He ends up losing. Like, that's the kind of thing where, like, if it was a fight in the UFC, I'm not sure if I would have had more information on it. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But it's just live and learn. I'm glad. You know, I didn't pay bet on anything in this fight, but you know, I was telling people, hey, there was value in Eddie Alvarez, and I feel like those people got screwed personally, but. You know, I just feel like that's a call that most refs don't make. Anything else you want to talk about this card? We can move on to Bellator.
We can move on to Bellator.
All right, let's do it. So, yeah, we had card last week, AJ. You want to briefly maybe talk about that card? It was all chalk that won. You had I know you bet on Pitbull in the main event. Just made it look so easy. The guy he went through a tough guy, Sanchez, just like butter. Mm-hmm. You didn't sweat that one at all, right? Like he's just like this is too easy. This guy's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, he's a stud. I mean, we already kind of knew that, and I cannot wait for him to fight AJ McKee because I really believe that those two are the best featherweights. I mean, in Bellator, that is. AJ McKee has looked like basically flawless, as has Pitbull lately. So that is like, I cannot wait for that matchup. And as far as the matchup with Sanchez, I mean, yeah, Pitbull. That tells me that he's not exactly one of these guys that, oh yeah, he's champ, he's getting complacent. No. He got a much more clear result this time, knocking down the very durable Emmanuel Sanchez and then submitting him. A very
Talking
good
about Cole, just the vicious man. The guy's cold. Incredible.
And then Jackson Gracie. I mean, there was a little bit. It started off weird with Jackson scraping his eye, but the dude battled back and won 2 out of 3 rounds. There was Tyrell, Fortune. Leaving no doubt. There's no controversy this time, no low blow. So he went out there, did his thing, got a ground and pound stoppage. And Usman Nurmagomedov, Coach Khabib, is now 3-0 the past month or so this year.
I like that kid. He looked good. Like the way he throws those kicks out, just throws the kick out, damages the guy. That's a guy to bet on going forward.
Yeah, like, assuming he's not minus 1,000.
I mean, he's going to be. I was going to say like him and Magomedov, obviously. I mean, but he's going to be like. I think some books had him at like minus 4,000. The guy he's just so good, and he just rolled in that fight too. You know what? Like I didn't really even think about it, but like on fight day, like a lot of the over-unders kind of dropped for that card. And again, you know, you got to be careful with Bellator, I think, betting these over-unders. But, you know, some of these mismatches, AJ, like they do result in a lot of finishes. So these unders are hitting pretty easily. I mean, I think we're going to say the same thing about this card. A lot of these fights, I'm guessing, like there's a lot of big chalk again. But, you know, I think maybe that's something that to keep an eye on, guys, if you are like an over-under better, to look at the unders on this card because they do drop on fight day, I noticed. And, you know, there's a lot of finishes, AJ. All right, let's go through it, man.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, so we'll go through the prelims quick. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of these fighters, none of us know a lot about, but the main card is very good. Just getting the odds out. Okay, so. All right, this fight right here, John Duma against Will Smith. This is the first fight, guys. Here we go. John Duma right now. This is according to Best Fight Odds, guys. Minus 485. Will Smith plus 350. You got a 4-2 fighter against a 3-2 fighter in the feather. I guess it's a feather bantamweight fight actually. So I guess Smith's dropping down. Any thoughts on this one at all?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's just another one of these cases where it's just
let's
like
look at these guys. I don't even like. I'll be honest. Like, I mean, do we know a lot about these guys? No.
No, they're very inexperienced.
And this dude's minus 4 something? No way. I wouldn't bet on him. 24 years old. Coming off of, he's lost 2 of his last 3 fights. Why would you want to bet minus 400 in this guy? Maybe this guy's worth a shot. He's 31 years old. He's coming off a loss too. I don't know these guys, man. Let's be honest. You know, AJ, like, sorry guys, that's probably the worst breakdown we've ever done. It really is. No. But don't lay minus 400 on these guys. Like, please. We're going to say, AJ.
No, that's just it, right? I mean, the reality is you don't have to bet every fight on the card, right? When you have 2 fighters who's just very inexperienced, it's tough to gauge, like we were saying before, what these odds should actually be based on the level of competition that they face. So personally, I don't feel bad passing about it at all. I'd just rather invest in a spot that I feel good about.
100%. If you're going to lay minus 400, when you want to invest in someone like that, it's a quality fighter. You know what I mean? Like, you're taking a complete jump in the dark, guys, if you bet on these guys. I wouldn't even put these guys in parlays, you know?
No.
All right, let's go to this next fight. Diana Avsaragova versus Tara Graf. Clearly, they're pushing this girl, like, by the way. I mean, that's pretty clear. I don't know if you saw the weigh-ins today. And by the way, she's a minus 1370 and Graf plus 750. This is a classic Bellator squash match, guys. Oh, by the way, Valerie's here. Hey, Valerie. This is a classic Bellator squash match. Let's be honest, AJ.
Yep.
This girl, yeah, they're talking about, like, she's obviously very attractive and she's undefeated. So, you know, like, this is someone that the UFC probably, or sorry, not the UFC, Bellator, they tend to invest in these young fighters, AJ. Like, they really get behind them and push them with easy fights, I would say. I mean, no disrespect to this fighter here, Taylor Graf, but come on. I mean, she's coming in here off of 2 straight losses by knockout. Like, she's super inexperienced. She does have 1 win by knockout, but, I mean, this girl has a 1-2 record. So, you know, like, AJ, like, this is such a low-level MMA. Why would you want to lay minus 1370 on this girl? Like, I wouldn't do it. She's going to roll, but, I mean, maybe the under. Maybe that's what you'd look at here. This is a fight where – is there – like, do we have it yet? Probably not.
I don't think so.
We don't. The main card we do. That's an under spot, though, I'd say, AJ. You know, this fight. Don't pay the minus 1,500, but if you can get under at, like, under 1.5 maybe even, that could be a spot. Because I'm pretty sure this girl destroys Graf here.
Yeah, anytime it's a mismatch, the under is always an option, and the unders have higher limits than the fight doesn't go to decision usually. So that's always an angle you could take. Because, like, yeah, I mean, there's people that parlay this and that, but at minus 1,300 or whatever, like, just you could always pass on it. That's always an option. So I feel more than comfortable just kicking back and watching the fight go down.
I agree, but I'm just saying, you know, as an option, because I don't play I don't think either of us. I mean, AJ's already said he draws the limit 5-1, so. Like, these huge favorites, they're just automatic passes for me. I don't even really bother to look at the other side a lot of the time either. Like, I wouldn't even want to put anything on Graf. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't even want to put a few bucks on her. I wouldn't even touch it. But I do think that under could be a spot there, AJ. I do believe that for that fight, because that's a showcase fight, I think, guys. Bellator push Instagram friendly fighters, but have a terrible. That's funny. Yeah. You know, I gotta get my boy Tom Taylor, BJ Penn, or used to be at BJ Penn. He's at Maxim now. Look at this guy, man. He's working with Maxim, and they broke the Valerie Lorena fight today. So I got to give Tom some credit for that one. She's a fighter that they just announced her next fight, and the girl I did the fight after AJ. The girl she's fighting is just terrible. So that's what they do in Bellator, guys. There's a lot of these young fighters. It's like the boxing way, the old way of building up fighters. AJ, have them fight kind of quote unquote, you know, cans. And again, you know, don't want to be too disrespectful to these fighters because they are in fighting in Bellator and. Anyone steps in the cage, I do truly respect, man, because it's a tough job. But, you know, it's clear what they're doing in that fight. Okay, this next fight, tough name to pronounce here. Nainoa Dung versus Izzy William. And odds for this one, Dung minus 160, William plus 130. Any thoughts on this fight, AJ?
No, I don't. I focus mainly on the main card. Just
no problem. Yeah, I still want to go through it, though. You know, we'll go through it quickly. Yeah. Don't feel embarrassed, man, because honestly, I don't know a lot about these guys either. I do remember him, though, because he's a Hawaiian dude, and he's fought a bunch of times in Bellator Hawaii cards. And then William, I guess, let's take a look at him, 4-3. He's coming off a loss to Jordan Levitt, who's in the UFC now. Again, this is not a fight that I don't think either of us want to touch, but I'd probably lean towards Dung. He's only 22 years old. Maybe this is a spot to look at, you know? He's 22, the other guy's 33. Maybe that's a spot. Just like age is something I always look at, that 10-year age gap. That's something that always intrigues me, AJ, because the majority of the time when a fighter hits a 10-year age gap, they lose. So that's something that does intrigue me. I have to look into it a little bit more. But he is favored, Dung. I'm guessing that's what you'd pick, right?
Yeah, I'd just pick the favorites. Just lazy analysis.
No, it's okay, man. Don't worry about it. I still want to go through it, though, guys. I mean, we're getting the main card anyways. There's like only a few more prelims. This one, I mean, this is another fight. Jalen Bates versus Jeffrey Klostner. I mean, look at this guy's picture. I don't want to put money on this guy. No offense to the guy. Jalen Bates minus 610, Klostner plus 425. Yeah. So Bates has one fight, AJ. He's minus 600. I don't really know how do they even set these odds really? Like what do they base it on? You know, like they must have knowledge of these guys just being beasts. And this guy has a lot of amateur fights, by the way. So I guess he's someone they've been kind of building a little bit. Bates, so he's got probably 10 amateur fights, and then Klostner 2-1, 24. He's young too. Yeah, I mean, it's dangerous. Don't lay minus 600 in this fight either. You know, like even like last week, there were fighters like Magomedov, and Usman Nurmagomedov, AJ. At least we had a sample size of. Like these guys you're taking a shot at like regional level guys that never, like they don't have much experience. You know,
right?
Again, it's not the. I'm sorry, guys, it's not the greatest analysis here, but like this is just good. I think advice in general. You don't have to bet every fight, right, AJ? Like you don't have to have action. And as someone who used to do that, you know, because it's fun, I don't do that anymore. You know what I mean? I'm smarter about it. You know, that's what you have to be because you got to protect your stack, right, AJ?
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I would just rather invest my money in the spots that I feel the best about.
Absolutely.
Like, that's just it. Because like my only bet last event was on Pitbull. I bet him at like minus 255, and it's a 39% ROI if it cashes. Like, what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? Like,
no, it's a good bet. It was a good bet. Yeah. And I told you I'd like Jackson too. Those were like the two guys I liked. And the dude that smashed Roger Huerta, who I told you he's done. Again, you know, that's a pure fade. Anyways, this guy Cody Law, guy's huge favorite too. Minus 580 according to best fight odds. Nathan Garib plus 415. Let's take a quick look at these guys. Cody Law, 2-0, 26 years old, American top. These are all like American top team guys, man. These are all like young killers though. Like that's what it is. Like they you know, I'm guessing that their management there, like American top team gets, you know, favorable matchups booked for these guys for the most part. And like this guy looks like a beast. And this guy is also undefeated, 2-0, but you know, much low level, hasn't fought in 2 years, has lost as an amateur. Again, you know, low level fights, guys, low level fights. But maybe this Law guy is someone to keep your eye on. I mean, you never know who's going to be the next like big thing. You never know. It's true. Like they have to start somewhere, right? Like you never know when you're watching the next UFC champion. That's the crazy thing about the sport, man. Like there's been guys that I saw in the regional scene and became like great. You know what I mean? That I never thought would ever happen. You know, it always got to start somewhere. So keep that in mind. But in general, it is low level fights. Now I know these guys are pretty good though. This Jornal Lugo guy, Cass Bell, these guys are ranked in the Bellator ranking. So Lugo is a big favorite here, minus 325, Bell plus 250. Any thoughts on this fight?
No, just two green fighters that, you know, want nothing to do with from a betting perspective because the odds, we don't, like to your point, we don't even know if these odds are correct. Like, yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Go ahead. Know what I mean? Like 6-1, like I guess in hindsight it could look like that, but how do we know that like going into it? There's just not enough really data to suggest that. So there's nothing wrong with just passing on these spots. And the main card fights, as we'll get into, are more competitive, and we have more information on these fighters. So that's generally where I look to. I agree on Bellator cards. Yeah.
Yep, I agree with that. I mean, there are, you know, if you really dig deep, you can definitely find some spots. But in general, I just think, you know, laying minus 600 unproven fighters is so dangerous, man. Like, like even you can't even lay that on really good fighters like Demetrious Johnson. They can still lose, you know. Like it's just dangerous. So that's the threat you take, guys. Next fight here, Talita Nogueira against Jessica Borga. Nogueira does have quite a bit of experience in Bellator. She's minus 325, Borga plus 250. Pretty sure this girl rolls too, right?
Yeah. I mean, jiu-jitsu practitioner.
I mean, I guess. Look how many losses she's got, though. This is minus 325. A lot of grappling fights, but still, like.
Yeah, a lot of grappling fights. She fought Julia Budd on her resume. That's interesting. Her fight actually got postponed. She was going to fight on this card. It got postponed to the next event. So pretty interesting there. But yeah. I mean, this is the showcase for, what is it, the featherweight or the 135-pound division. It's going to be tough to just, with Cyborg as a champ, I just think she's going to reign as champ. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
So hopefully one of these two ladies has a good showing and maybe they get a title shot.
Yeah, so this is an interesting fight. I mean, like, not all these prelims are kind of random fights. This is a good fight. Dalton Rosta against Tony Johnson. Tony Johnson was on the Contender Series a couple years ago, and he won his fight. It was a great fight. He should have been signed. Dana White passed on because he's older guys. And it's like, why did they even bring – I remember complaining about that. I'm like, why did they bring an older guy in the show then if they're just going to say he's too old? He won the fight. It was a great fight. Look at this case. So, by the way, the odds, minus 600. This guy's a beast. He's a tank. They call him Hercules. I mean, this dude's just in insane shape. Like, at the weigh-ins, I don't know if you saw it, AJ. Like, the guy's in freaking – like, hold on, I'm going to find it because this guy is just like – he's just crazy shape. Like, it's just – they call him Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say he justifies the name Hercules, doesn't he?
That's what they call him that, I guess. Like, I mean, I honestly don't know a ton about him. James told me about this guy for a while. James Lynch, he was telling me, like, this guy's really good, man. Like, keep your eye on this guy. He's been telling me for a while now. Cool, I'm just going to find the where is it here? Yeah, they did have, like, at least they have weigh-ins, right? But, like, look at this dude. Where is it? Guy's like crazy shape. Look at this guy. This guy makes 185. How? How does this guy make 185? He's an absolute beast.
Just like we were wondering about with Romero for all those years. It's just how do they do it?
But honestly, this guy is a really good fighter, Tony Johnson, man. He is a very good fighter, guys. He is someone I do know about. We can definitely talk about him. So, Dalton Ross, let's get to him quickly. I mean, 25-year-old, he's a tank, as you can see. They obviously like this guy. He is an absolute unit. He's undefeated in MMA. AJ, everyone's saying this guy's going to be a big contender here. But this guy is a really good fighter, guys. He's an AK trained guy. He's been training with those guys forever. DC Kane forever. Look at his record, AJ. He actually has not a ton of fights. He's been inactive over the years, but he knocked out Joe Schilling in Bellator. He won his fight in the Contender Series. It got passed on, and then knocked out Joe Schilling's next fight. And I guess because COVID, he didn't fight last year. This guy is a beast, and I swear to God, guys, this is going to be the toughest fight of this kid's career, and I would not be surprised if this guy wins. So I am familiar with this fighter, and I'm not saying, go and, put your house on it, but at plus 430, this is a spot you could throw a flyer on. Okay, AJ? So if this wins, can you give me credit next week?
Of course. I mean, you said it right here. But isn't there a wide age gap here? 37 versus 24?
He's old. I agree. But I just think the talent is there where he can actually make this a competitive fight. Because this kid's never been tested by someone with this kind of striking, man, I don't think. This guy knocked out Joe Schilling. I know he doesn't have a great chin, guys, but don't get me wrong. Well, there's a reason he's minus 600. Look at the guy. Look at him, right? But I question the cardio a little bit, right? Can we question the cardio a little bit? What happens if it does get pushed by a veteran guy who's been in there with some really good fighters over the years, So I don't know. I mean, that's a spot where, again, all the things that I always bet against, right? Like age gap and all, just momentum, right? All that stuff. Sometimes you gotta just look at the guy as a fighter. This guy is a talented fighter, so we'll see. He might get smashed, but we'll see. What are you gonna say?
Wasn't he matched up with Cunningham on the Contender Series? He was a younger guy, was he not? That they were matching him up with.
Dalton Cunningham. Let's take a look. He was 2 years ago. 25 years old, 7-2 record, and this guy had lost one fight, but still, I mean, he had a lot of knockout wins. AJ, in LFA, that's the risk you take, guys. Everyone thought that guy was supposed to win, right? Mm-hmm. And Johnson was, what were the odds? He was he was a plus 400 underdog, AJ. AJ, I'm telling you, look, here we go. Daniel, there we go, baby. I'm not, listen, there's a reason the guy's my 600. Look at the guy. We all saw the pictures, but the experience, that and the toughness and the durability, and that Joe Schilling fight, I believe it was tied 1-1, and it was a really close fight. And he just landed a brutal punch. He's got good cardio. So let's see. Let's see what happens, guys. I'll give myself a pat on the back on that one at least. But, I mean, hey, I might take a small shot on one, just a small punt. Not that I usually do that, but those odds are too crazy to me. And that's, again, the risk with laying 600 on an unproven fighter. I think a lot of people just parlay, this guy too. But this dude is not bad, man. I'm telling you. He's a legitimate talent. And actually, that's the end of the prelim. So, we'll see. Let me get a comment from Kenshiro. That's awesome, man. Good job. Yeah, wow. That's a crazy parlay. Jeez. Wow. Go to the main card now, AJ. Dan Moran against Goiti Yamauchi. This is a quality fight here, guys. This is a guy's a former UFC fighter, obviously, and Goiti's stalwart of Bellator. Right now, the odds, according to Best Fight Odds, it's a pretty hefty price here on Yamauchi, minus 425, Moret, plus 320. Give me your thoughts on this fight, AJ.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's almost as if, Gauchi's Gouti, is getting a good matchup here. He's number 3 rated lightweight in Bellator.
Good record. Yeah,
very good. His last loss came against Chandler, which obviously is definitely not a bad loss at all. And I don't think Morat can really do to him what Chandler did. And doesn't mean that based off that Morat has no chance to win. No, but I tend to think Gouti should be a favorite. I think he's a better fighter standing. I think he's a better submission specialist, and that seems to be Moret's strength. We saw Moret in the UFC. He struggled to land takedowns. He struggled to take down Alex White. He struggled to really get any sort of significant offense on. So I just think that, technique-wise, athleticism-wise, Gauti's got him beat there. And that's why I think he should be a favorite. I think he rolls, but we'll see. It's interesting in that Gouti, most of his wins are by submission, but Moret's a pretty good submission grappler. He's a BJJ brown belt. So I wouldn't be shocked to, see this fight go to decision. How do you see that one?
Actually, we interviewed Dan Morant, me and James, on the old podcast, the Party Shop podcast, like in 2000 and I want to say 2013 or 14, like right around here. Like when he fought, I think it was when he fought Luke Sanders or Bobby, one of those fights. We interviewed him way back in the day, so I'm pretty familiar with this guy. He's kind of he's one of those journeymen. Let's be honest, AJ. He's a journeyman. You know, he's one of these guys that he competes regional level guys, and you saw him go to the UFC, and he was terrible in the UFC. He lost all 3 fights. To be fair to him, like, Gilbert Burns is a brutal matchup, obviously. I mean, poor guy. And then look at this fight. I mean, Barcelos, these are tough matchups, Gordon. White's a fight he should have won, I would say. This is actually a pretty good win here. Anton Kuvainen, a former UFC fighter too. So, he's got experience, man. Like you said, he's got a pretty good ground game, right? But I think Yamauchi is, super dynamic. And again, the age gap, AJ, in this fight too. You know, I don't think it's something he can overcome. He's getting up there in age. And this dude's in his prime. He's 28 years old. And look at I actually forgot he even fought Darren Cruikshank in Bellator, former UFC fighter. That's a quality win. Daniel Weichel, Sada Wad's a good win. Adam Piccolotti. I've watched this guy his whole career, guys. I've watched him since he came into Bellator. He was always a guy that won his fights. He gets the job done. So he's a guy that I think is a guy that you want to put your money on, to be completely honest with you, because he usually gets the job done. He's a guy that works hard for our money. He never just quits in his fights. Even the losses he's had were very close losses, AJ. So, I'd rather bet, if you're going to lay a number, this is a guy I target personally, because he's a guy that has been, someone that's won a lot of fights in Bellator over the years. And again, he fights hard for 3 rounds. He will fight for your money. That's what you're looking for too. You want someone who's tough, AJ. You know what I mean? So, not sure if you're going to look at this fight, but I think he rolls here, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say as far as a betting perspective goes, but yeah, I do agree with Gowdy being a favorite. You said it; he's a better fighter, so that should mean that he wins. And yeah, I think number 3 rated lightweights. We know Pitbull's holding down that division, but who knows? Maybe with an impressive performance, he gets a title shot.
Yep, I'm just gonna take some questions right now. Jose, how big would it be Rugwear becomes champ? I mean, pretty big, right? He's got that look, right? He's you want that, the poster boy they call it, right? Nagano is great for posters. This guy is too. Rugwear's a big sloppy. True, he is. His striking needs work, but he gets to the ground. You can't get. He's just huge. He's just a huge dude. You know what I mean? He's talking about DJ saying he looks a bit flat. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's as focused on his career as he used to be. I think that's fair to say. But he got beat by a good fighter too. I don't think you want to take anything away from Adriano in that fight. Okay, let's start with this fight. Kat Zingano against Olivia Parker, guys. Big odds here again. Kat Zingano minus 850 AJ, plus 575 for Olivia Parker. We obviously remember Kat Zingano from the UFC, and I'm pretty sure she rolls on this one too. AJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. Zingano's the better grappler, I think. Parker, that seems to be where she excels. It's just Zingano is just, I think, better technically. Parker will have some size on her, which is interesting. And we did see, it was just a sequence, but it was still pretty concerning. Gabrielle Holloway mount Zingano, led some ground and pound at her for over a minute or so, a minute and 30 seconds. So that's a concern. But I generally agree with Zingano being a big favorite. I think she rolls, maybe with a win here. She gets to fight Cyborg. I know we were talking about one of the prelim fights, but I think that Zingano, with an impressive performance after Leslie Smith fights Chris Cyborg, could make a strong case for sure.
That's so funny, Kenshio's comment. She's actually younger. Yeah, she's 38 and she's the younger fighter in the fight. This is obviously a favorable matchup for her. I got to be honest, though, guys. I don't think she looked that good in the last fight with Holloway. I was scared. I'm watching it for her, you know what I mean? Because I'm a fan of her. I want her to do well. She's been through a lot, man. Her husband committed suicide. She had some struggles in the UFC. She's had a lot of issues, you know what I mean? So she's someone I want to root for, but, bro, she didn't look that good in that fight at all, and I would not lay the number on her here, personally, at 850. Again, you told me you draw the line at 5-1, so that's probably someone you just completely passed on, just based on that. But, I do expect her to win. Having said that, it's not even a fight I would even be looking at the over-under, because I think it can go either way on that too. You know what I mean? Do you have a strong lean towards a finish or a decision in this fight? I favor a finish. I guess you favor one.
I would, a wide skill gap could spell a finish. I guess I wouldn't be shocked to see it go to decision, just based off the fact that Zingano has gone to decision so many times. But I mean, you watch tape and it's just she's just so much better than this girl, where I wouldn't be shocked. I see her guest finish her. So I would lean Zingano probably finishes the fight just based off the wide skill gap. But I guess the decision wouldn't totally shock me based off the recency.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the props on that, guys, and the under's minus 140, under 2.5 rounds, minus 140. maybe that's the way to go here. Maybe that is the way to go because I think there is a skill gap on the ground as far as the technique goes, but the size does worry me a little bit. She's fighting these big girls, right? Kevin said, "Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, she wouldn't be someone I'd be looking at, but I guess I'd favor the under a little bit too. Actually, AJ, to be honest with you." Actually, you know what? In general, I feel like that's not a bad way to target these huge favorites to bet the unders on them, or the inside of distance props. Like Montel Jackson last week, I think that was like even money or something for the finish. You know what I mean? Like, and when there's like you said that wide discrepancy in the skill, so it's something that's always like you can keep your eye on. But again, maybe this girl is going to be tough enough that or maybe Castiel just is washed up enough, like Kevin thinks. Okay, now this fight, I think this fight is probably the best fight in the card. I absolutely love this fight. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this one, AJ. Jeremy Kennedy, it's Adam Boric. I love this fight, guys. Very, very close odds. Minus 130 for Kennedy, plus 110 for Boric. It feels like they have one of these like really, really close fights on every card now for Bellator. Like they had the Jackson Gracie fight last week, and this is this fight. Man, give me your thoughts on this one.
I mean, this is kind of like it, although I just don't really see Boric really taking Kennedy down. Him being the better striker, he should be able to want to just keep the fight upright. And it's just a classic striker versus grappler matchup. Like Boric is the striking phenom, in my opinion. It's hard for me to watch tape and not favor Boric pretty significantly on the feet. And then Kennedy, what he needs to do is get the clinch, get the takedowns, and win via control. We know Kennedy's got good cardio. I know you're a UFC stats guy. He landed like 8 takedowns in, at least one of his UFC fights. So he's got the cardio to do that for 15. I guess where I'm struggling with on this fight is Kennedy as good of an athlete? And is he as good of a wrestler as these guys that were able to take down Boric? I'm referring to Caldwell, Pico, Amel. Personally, I think those guys are a step above Kennedy in terms of athleticism and wrestling. So can Kennedy get his game going? It's possible, but I think that there's also a decent chance that Boric keeps the fight upright where he could maybe win a decision or potentially by knockout. Kennedy, he's lost via stoppage twice. Those are the only two ways the only way in which he lost his 2 fights to Volkanovski, and then also in PFL. He also had that no contest against Pineda where it was a guillotine, but it got overturned. But Boric, young guy, improving. They both are. But he's a Sanford MMA guy, and that Boric is, and that camp's red hot right now. I mean, it really is. Chandler, Burns, Brunson, they got a lot of good things going on down there with Henry Hooft in Florida. So I'm high on that camp right now. How do you see it going down?
So you're picking Boric?
I slightly lean Boric. Yeah, I do.
I like Boric. I like Boric, guys. I like him a lot. I think he's worth a bet. Minus 130. I think he's the way better fighter. It comes down to who's the better MMA fighter. I think he's the better MMA fighter. He's proven that, man. He is a great young fighter, guys. Like he really is. And the odds are always pretty good on him too. Like he's been Pico. He was a huge underdog in that fight. I can't remember what the odds were. He was. Let me check on best fight odds. Adam Boric closed at against Pico plus 200. Okay, so not huge, but plus 200. And then even against Pat Curran, he was a small favorite. He's not a guy that's always like a huge favorite. Like you get him in a good line. I think he's a really good young fighter. I think Kennedy's decent too, but I don't know, man. I'm with you. Like I don't think he's as good as like maybe the stats or whatever indicate, because the guys he fought in the UFC were not great fighters. Let's be honest. Like Ronnie Jason, Kyle Bochniak, like Alex Ricci. Like, come on, those are easy fights. This guy also lost as a massive favorite in this fight. He was minus 390. It said, yeah, he was a huge favorite and lost, AJ. So I don't really trust him. And the guys he's beaten since then, yeah, like Steven Tyler, that's a guy that allows the takedown. Matt Bissett, a guy who couldn't get to cut it. He lost this fight to Daniel Pineda. That should be a loss. That's a loss that got overturned because I think of PEDs. I'm not sure it was banned substance of some sort. I'm not sure what it was actually, but the point is, like, he's a guy with a lot of holes in his game. And you mentioned Sanford MMA, dude. If you bet on those guys, they always win. That team is a team of winners, bro. They're on a win streak right now. They got Brunson, Omar Morales. Impa Kasanganay is fighting this weekend. He's another guy who's a huge favorite that probably should roll. We'll talk about that fight maybe. Man, I just think that team is really red hot. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't played anything yet, guys, but I think Boric at a pick and price, that's someone you got to look at, I think. And I think you're agreeing with me on that, AJ. Yeah, I mean, look at the price is right. Yeah,
it's a dogger pass matchup, I feel. I feel like it's going to look like a binary fight. If Kennedy's able to get his grappling going, then he'll look like a decent sized favorite. But if Kennedy or Boric is able to keep the fight upright, he could win by knockout. he could win by decision. Although I would lean more towards knockout just because I think he's just a much better striker. So
I really like him in the fight. How about this fight? This Carmouche versus Vanessa Porto, women's flyweight bout, 2 veterans here. Odds on this one, Carmouche, I believe, is favored here, -170, +150 for Porto. Any thoughts on this fight?
I guess what's giving me the most trouble is gauging exactly how good of a defensive grappler Porto is. There's footage of her defending takedowns, a lot of them, in part, I think, because she's so physically strong, but I also think she has solid technical concepts. But then there's other footage of her getting taken down from a head and arm throw, nearly ground and pound finished more than once. I have concerns on the Carmouche side. Obviously, against Deanna Bennett, she was taken down and controlled in round 2. She lost that round. They're both really physically strong women. Carmouche, the former Marine, they're both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. So I think we're going to get a fight where they're going to want to take each other down. But we always get sometimes those weird fights where like 2 fighters excel as grapplers, but they want to stand with each other. In which case, I actually think Carmouche is a bit better of a striker. Porto's got power, but I think Carmouche is a bit better technically. So that's I guess I'm just having a tougher time reading because I could see takedowns being landed on either side. But I guess I do trust Carmouche just a bit more. She's more tested. I think she's a bit better technically, and I just trust her level of competition more, her experience a bit more. Porto should be a stout test, but I tend to agree with Carmouche being a favorite. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good fight. This girl should have been in the UFC, I think, years ago. Man, she really should have been. She's fought everyone. She's, by the way, she's also older. They're both 37, so she's not a prospect. It's 2 veterans going at it. Look, you got to respect this, AJ. Look, she didn't fight. She fought Chris Cyber in 2005. She fought Roxanne Modafferi in 2008. She fought Amanda Nunes in 2009. AJ, you were like a teenager then. She was fighting the toughest girls in the world. Think about it, man. This girl has been fighting at a high level for a long time, and she should have been in the UFC a long time ago. The problem is, guys, she's good enough, I think, to be like a solid fighter, but at the same time, she's not that top elite level. And I feel like Carmouche is just at the bottom end of that top level of the division. You know what I mean, AJ? She's at the bottom end of that top 10, I think. Because I think if Carmouche was in the UFC right now, she would be top 10 for sure. If you look at the division, she was cut because of some other issues. I don't think it was because she wasn't performing. She actually had fought for the belt, and then she got cut after she fought Valentina. So it wasn't because of performance. She had won, I think, a couple of fights before that, right? She's not the most exciting fighter, though. That's the other thing, they're both grinders, I think, I would like to see Porto win just because I think it'd be cool to see a new contender emerge. But I think Carmouche probably is just going to be too strong for her, man. She's physically strong. And I feel like it's going to be a grappling fight, AJ. I agree with you completely. She's going to be the one in top. That's what I think. So is that kind of how you're reading it too a little bit?
Yeah, I tend to think that Carmouche should win the aggregate of the grappling exchanges. Again, my only hesitancy with favoring her heavily there is just the Bennett fight. But I would argue that her just facing higher level of competition. I mean, I watched Porto's fight with Milana Dudieva. She was taken down from a head and arm throw and was back mounted and took a lot of ground and pound. I mean, if Carmouche takes her back, I mean, she's mainly a decision fighter, but she's just coming off a rear naked choke finish, a BJJ black belt. I don't see why she can't sink in the hooks and get the choke.
Yeah, it's possible for sure. Yeah, it's not really a fight I think I want to bet on, but from a pure picking perspective, I did want to pick Porto just because I'd like to see, like I said, a new fighter emerge, kind of, especially someone underrated. She's kind of like Adriano Moraes. She's someone that's not getting her credit because she's been in Invicta. You know what I mean, AJ? Whereas Carmouche has been in the UFC. We all know her. Carmouche probably does win, but it's a close fight. The odds are pretty much right, I think, at -170. That seems right to me. Kenshiro, I've already parlayed boards. Good. This guy says Kennedy sucks. He's okay, man. He's not great. Carmouche has to be released. Maybe you're right, Kevin. My apologies there. But either way, I mean, it wasn't performance. It's not like she had lost 3 straight. She had won a couple fights. Okay, last fight here on the card. Main event, guys, is a rematch. And I got to tell you, man, I remember this first fight because that card was awesome. It was Shogun versus Brandon Vera, and this was the co-main event. And I remember I was on the UFC the conference call with Dana White, and I was asking him, I said to him, are you going to give the title shot to the most impressive performer? He said, yeah, because everyone at that point thought someone else would get the title shot. And Machida won. He ended up fighting, for the belt or whatever. So that was cool, man. It's a cool moment. I just remember also that everyone was saying Bader had no chance, and he got destroyed. And if you watch that first fight, he got overzealous and ran in and got caught, basically. I'm sure you watched the first fight again. it's obviously 10 years later or 9 years later now, I should say. And Machida's way older now, 42 years old. Bader's also pretty old, 37. But, since that first fight, man, like, it's just two guys going opposite directions, really. Like Machida going downwards and Bader going upwards. And Bader's got the grappling and Machida still got some striking. The odds right now are pretty heavy, AJ. Bader minus 290, Machida plus 245. Do you believe that's accurate or you think they're a little bit wide?
I mean, I agree with Bader being a favorite just because he should be able to control where the fight goes. And, Machida, he's shown generally solid takedown defense throughout his career, but he's still been taken down plenty of times. And the biggest concern I had for Machida was in round 3 against Musasi, where he kind of fell to his back with like a minute 30 left, and he could not work back up. Like, he just kind of settled for a guillotine choke, couldn't get it, and then just ended the fight on his back. Like, against a wrestler on the level of Bader, an NCAA Division I background, I think that path to victory is there for Bader. Just takedowns, top control. Wouldn't expect him to finish Machida because, as we know, Machida is a black belt and that sort of thing. But this matchup aside, again, I agree with Bader being a favorite. He probably goes out there and wins, although I think on the feet it could be a little dicey for him because Machida is still the better technical striker.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to be Mr. Hindsight, but I was even saying this prior to going into the Nemkov fight. Like, if you look at Bader's resume in Bellator, obviously he's found his groove, he's found his rhythm, he's the champ, he's done great. But he's mostly been winning fights by knocking guys out in the first round that have been knocked out plenty of times, or he's like dominating them with top control. And when those two passive victories weren't like on the table, at least on paper, against Nemkov, a very young, durable guy who's combat sambo background, like, he struggled there. So, like, in this tournament, like this matchup aside, I have my hesitancies with Bader if he can't knock the guy out that he's facing in front of him quickly, or just take him down and ride out top control. And there's a lot of good wrestlers in this bracket. But in this first matchup here against Machida, he's facing the guy that doesn't come from a strong wrestling background. Therefore, I think he should be able to win the fight that way. But I do have my concerns for Bader in general in this big tournament here, because there's guys like Romero, Anthony Johnson, who already beat him. I mean, Nemkov is there as well. Phil Davis, a split decision. Like, I like Bader. I think he's a very talented fighter, but like, as we've seen, like, when those two things aren't going for him, he tends to struggle. So we'll see exactly how it plays out. But I think Bader probably wins.
Killer Gorilla thinks Bader wins too. Yeah, I think he should win because he does have the grappling advantage we talked about. And, he's just been dominating the guys, like you said, AJ. But I don't think I can lay the juice on him here, guys. I have concerns, man, about his chin, especially at 205. He's not the same guy at 205, I don't think. That weight cut is brutal for him, AJ. We're not even talking about the fact that most of his wins came recently at heavyweight. And we saw him move down to 205, and he got destroyed by the champ, Nemkov. That's a tough weight cut for him. He is an amazing fighter, don't get me wrong, but I do question him a little bit at 205. At heavyweight, he can just eat as much as he wants, doesn't have to worry about that. It's fine. But, at 205, man, that's where all his losses really came earlier in his career. I mean, at heavyweight, he hasn't lost. Mm-hmm. But at 205, he's had some losses. Like, look at this fight with Anthony Johnson. I mean, well, that was a different fight, obviously, that he was able to not, get taken down. That's the biggest concern here. But Nemkov was a more technical striker, and he knocked him out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm picking Bader, but I got to be honest, man. I don't think I can play it, AJ. I do think there's a slight chance Machida can win. Like, Machida's been competitive, guys. Like, split decision fights against Davis and Musasi. They were close, AJ. He almost beat those guys. Phil Davis and Musasi were top 10 guys in that division. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Bader should win, but I don't know. I have concerns. I'm not sure. I guess you feel the same way, or is this someone you would consider, like, playing?
I mean, no, but I think you made a good point about the heavyweight thing. I think he's much better at heavyweight. Like, I think that is like a perfect weight class for him. It's much less competitive. Whereas, like, if you look at this lightweight bracket, I mean, I don't know if people have looked at it. I know you have, but like, this lightweight bracket contains a lot of guys that could pose a lot of resistance for a guy like Bader. They all come from, except for Machida, they all come from high-level wrestling backgrounds. They all hit very hard, except Davis isn't really a power puncher, but generally a lot of them are. And therefore, I think this lightweight bracket is kind of like a toss-up. Like, I mean, I understand Nemkov being, per the betting odds, the most likely guy to win, but I don't think it's a blowout by any means. I think it's very close. So
we should actually take a look at those odds. Why don't we take a look at them?
Sure.
What book has them? Let me try to think here.
Bet Online has them.
Let me see if I have my account. I know I have an account there. Yeah, I should be able to get in there. Bet Online. Okay. MMA. Let's do it. MMA props. All right. You know where it would be? Like, oh, here, I found it. It's at the bottom in the features. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, yeah, Nemkov is plus 190. So he's favored, like you said. But here's the guy I'm looking at. Anthony Johnson at plus 700. That is the guy I'm looking at. I think he's the best fighter in the field, personally. I know he's older now, guys. He hasn't fought in a while. But at plus 700, that's a future I'm looking at. Personally, I mean, these fights, we have to see what happens, I guess, now. But if you want to take a shot on them, the odds are going to change, right? Let's just go through them, AJ. Plus 190 for Nemkov. Plus 425, Yoel Romero. Plus 500, Ryan Bader. Plus 700, Rumble Johnson. Corey Anderson, plus 1,000. His opponent, Dovechan. Yajimad Gurov, plus 1,000. Phil Davis, plus 1,400. Machida is the biggest underdog in the field at plus 3,300, which is pretty nuts, but I understand it too. I don't think he's going to get through these wrestlers, right? That's probably what the odds makers are thinking. Anything that, like, is there anything that piques your interest? I don't think you're a futures guy, but anything you would, as a fun play that you throw a few bucks on or something?
I mean, not that I could give out on here. There are a few that I did mention in the shout out to Daily Fan MMA that I do like for that contest. But I think that, like, whenever you have like at least from your perspective, if there's ever an opportunity for a futures market where you think that it's generally competitive and there's ridiculous odds for whoever it is, and you think that they have a legit chance of winning, I always think that is like worth, for me, it's like worth a shot in general, whatever the sport may be. You mentioned Johnson. I mean, like, I think Johnson has all the skills to win, but like, as I was researching his fights, it's just like, I just don't know how motivated he is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Finds a way to lose. Yeah, he finds a way to lose.
When he is on, he is as dangerous as they come. Before Francis Ngannou came into the UFC, he was like the guy that everybody was afraid of. Yeah. But it's just like the retirement. He's saying, I was rewatching his post-fight interview after losing to Cormier the second time. He wants to do something else. I don't know how passionate he is about it with fighting. And if we're not getting 100% or even 90% or who knows, Rumble Johnson, it's tough for me to really back him with a lot of confidence. You know what I mean? Even if he's got all the skill. I will say this though, $1 million is on the line. That is a hell of a lot of motivation for these guys. Like, that's more than he would probably ever made the UFC for any of his fights. I mean, maybe he fought for the belt a few times. Maybe he did. I doubt it though. I mean, he fought Cormier for the belt. Not like Cormier is a massive draw. He's probably never made $1 million. So maybe it is, a little bit more motivating. But you're right, AJ. I mean, he hasn't fought in a while. I'm just saying, like, a plus 700 for a guy that I think he can beat Romero enough. I mean, we'll see. I actually haven't looked into it enough. I just think, it is a pick 'em, I believe. And maybe Romero has a slightly, and I can't remember now, but that's a crazy fight. Like, this tournament's pretty crazy. I'm excited for it. It starts. Do you want to give? Can you give a pick out for the tournament winner? Like, is there anything you could say or no? I mean, no, I still can't. That's okay. That's okay. No worries. No, I don't. I honestly, I don't even have a pick. I feel like it's really hard to predict something, but I guess if I take a long shot, I would take Rumble. Is there any long shot you could say? Like, one long shot we could look at, AJ? Can't say that either. I really can't. No, because shout out to Brett Apley. We've been working on this sort of thing. It's just kind of the idea. No worries. Okay. Yeah. We'll pass on it. Okay. I think that's it for today. Anyways, we're basically done. Anything else you want to mention? Anything else you're looking at? We got 1 minute here, so plug whatever, AJ. If you have any plays or anything you want people to read or whatever. Yeah, sure. So if you guys want to subscribe to the MMA Bellator premium content that I provide, you can do so at Daily Fan MMA on the Bellator tab. Also check out Brett's content, UFC content on there as well. He does a great job, very well known in the industry. I also contribute to Fantasy Pros, MMA Odds Breaker, and RotoWire. So got some free content out there as well. Don't think that all my content is paid for. I give out FanDuel picks for MMA and other stuff as well. So and all my bets for UFC are still free for the time being. So yeah, no worries, AJ. I totally respect that. No, for sure. I honestly, guys, like, I feel like futures in general are hard. Like, I remember the Strikeforce tournament years ago. And I thought Fedor would win. He got eliminated in the first round. Everyone thought Fedor was going to win, right? And then the winner ended up being the like Daniel Cormier, who was an alternate. He was plus 2,000. He was an alternate, So someone could get injured and someone else walks in and wins the tournament. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So, anyways, you guys can follow me on Twitter at MMAOB podcast, MMAOddsbreaker.com. It's on our YouTube channel. It's on Anchor. It's on wherever, iTunes. Subscribe, like, smash that stuff. Share it, guys. AJ's here every Thursday with me. I'm here with Marcel on Monday and Tuesday.
What else? Elite betting, elite fantasy. Tomorrow I'm going to have my DFS breakdown, AJ, and my bets. I'll give out the podcast tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. And then, I'll check out the new guys. I have this article on Sasha Palatnikov I want you people to check out on my Twitter. It's really interesting. All right, guys. Peace. Talk to you soon.